Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I yanked my kid's backpack onto the counter and dumped it out. Papers slid across the surface like they were trying to hide. My hands moved before my brain caught up. That panic felt ugly and familiar, like a warning I ignored before. I'm Mia, 32, and I knew something was wrong fast. Eli stood there with his shoulders tight and eyes down. He kept checking the door like someone might walk in. That look hit me harder than any bruise ever could. "Empty your pockets," I told him, then hated my own tone. He froze, then slowly tipped them out into his palm. A folded page dropped last, creased to death. It landed like a verdict I did not ask for. The top line read "Parenting RIGHTS PDF" in bold caps. Under it, my ex had stamped something that looked official. Eli's finger tapped the stamp like it mattered. "Dad says it makes it legal," he breathed, barely audible. I unfolded the page and saw bright highlights everywhere. Whole lines were underlined with shaky force. It had my name typed in clean letters. Someone had turned my life into a form, and I felt it. Eli watched my face, waiting for permission to relax. I tried to keep my voice steady and failed anyway. "Where did you get this?" I asked, too sharp. He flinched at the question like it was a trap. He reached for the paper like it belonged to him. Then he stopped like he remembered a rule mid-motion. His hand stayed in his lap, stiff as boards. That small stop told me more than his words did. "Dad printed it this morning." Eli swallowed hard. He made me fold it the same way. He looked at the corners like he could see fingerprints. Then he added something that made my stomach drop. "He quizzes me." I tried to laugh like this was silly paperwork. It came out thin and wrong, and I shut up. Eli's eyes stayed serious, like I was being tested too. So I stopped pretending and started reading like it mattered. The PDF had numbered sections like a contract. Words like compliance and consent were sprinkled in bold. One line said a child must cooperate during a wellness check. I read that twice and my throat went tight. "Show me what that means," I said, and regretted it. He hesitated, then lifted his wrists without a word. Red lines ringed, both of them, fresh and angry. My chest went hot, then cold, then empty. "What did he put on you?" I asked, too fast. Eli pulled his sleeves down like he could erase it. "Just bands." His eyes darted away. The way he rushed that answer made it feel rehearsed. I stepped closer and he leaned back on instinct. That movement wrecked me, and I still hear it in my head. I backed up right away, hands open, voice softer. He did not relax, which scared me more. He pointed at a paragraph on the page with a trembling finger. "This part," he traced the words like he could not miss any. "It says parents can restrain for safety." Then he whispered the line he had been taught, "It's in the PDF." I asked him who told him that exact phrase. Eli stared at my mouth like he was counting syllables. "Dad says courts like exact wording." His eyes flicked to the ceiling like there was a camera up there. I turned the page over and found a signature box. It had Eli's name printed under a crooked line. The signature looked like his, but too careful. I felt sick thinking about a pen pressed into his hand. "Did you sign this?" I asked, and my voice cracked. He nodded once, then shook his head right after. It was both answers at once, and it broke my focus. I forced myself not to push, even though I wanted to scream. Eli slid off the chair and backed toward the hallway. He kept the paper in sight like it was a shield. "Dad says you'll lie," he blurted, then clamped his mouth. He looked horrified that he had said it out loud. I grabbed my phone and my fingers fumbled the screen. Eli's eyes widened at the movement, like phones meant trouble. "Are you calling him?" he asked, voice thin. The fear in that question made my next choice feel impossible. I put the phone down, slow and obvious. "No calls yet." My throat burned on the word "yet." Eli exhaled like he had been holding air hostage. Then he asked the worst question, "Is it really legal if it's printed?" I stared at the fake seal and felt my anger sharpen. I wanted to promise safety, but promises felt cheap in that moment. So I did the only thing I trusted: action. I folded the page, tucked it in my pocket, and locked the door. My phone lit up again and again, unknown number, same area code. I let it ring until the screen went dark. Eli hovered near the hallway, listening for every vibration. The silence felt safer than any answer for about 10 seconds. A text slid in with a screenshot attached. It was the same PDF header, now shown like a trophy. Under it, my ex wrote one line: "You cannot interfere with my lawful parenting time." I typed back, then deleted it, then typed again. My fingers wanted a fight and my brain wanted proof. I sent one sent. And Sang kept it clean. "Do not contact our child about legal topics again." The reply came so fast it felt pre-written. "Not legal advice, then educational content is protected." He added a smiley face like this was cute. That tiny icon made me want to throw my phone. I walked Eli into my room and shut the door. "Stay here, don't answer anything, don't open windows." He nodded too quickly, like he was trained for drills. Then he asked, "Is he allowed to come inside?" I hated how long it took me to answer. I checked the lock twice, then checked it again. "No, not without my permission." Eli stared at the knob like it might turn anyway. Another message hit, longer this time, more official, more smug. He wrote "notice" at the top like it meant something. He claimed I was violating an enforceable instrument. He ended with, "Police will support the document." I called him before I could overthink it. He picked up on the first ring like he was waiting. "Good, you're finally taking this seriously." His voice sounded pleased, and that scared me most. "What did you put on his wrists?" I kept my tone flat. A pause, then a slow breath on his end. "Safety protocol, minimal force, fully authorized." He talked like a brochure with a pulse. You heard him, my grip crushed the phone edges. He chuckled once, short and sharp, then went cold again. "I used lawful restraint, read section 4. He said section like it was scripture. "I'm looking at your paper right now." He corrected me like I was a student. "It's not paper, it's a filed PDF. Then he asked, "Did you authenticate the seal?" That word authenticate made my skin crawl. I asked him for the case number, real and simple. He avoided it by reciting a statute line. I heard pages flipping on his end like he practiced. "I want the case number," I said it slower. He exhaled like I was being difficult on purpose. "You don't need it, the rights exist regardless." Then he added, "Stop acting emotional." I laughed and it came out ugly. Emotional, like my kid's wrists were a mood swing. I kept my voice low because Eli could hear me. "Send me the file, the actual file." A second later, an email arrived from a weird address. The subject line read, "Parenting Time Rights Final." He attached the PDF and added a link too. The link looked like a trap dressed as a shortcut. I forwarded the email to myself twice, just in case. Then I took screenshots of every page, every footer, every line. I was moving on instinct, not courage. If you have ever panicked quietly, you get it. I opened the PDF and scrolled like my life depended on it. The formatting was sloppy in places, then suddenly perfect. Random words were bolded, like he wanted them remembered. It screamed of someone pretending to be official. One page had a judge name typed in a fancy font. Another page cited a courthouse that did not exist. He had copied real language, then bent it into nonsense. It was cosplay with consequences, and he knew it. I checked the document properties and my hands went numb. Author name was his first name, no shame at all. Creation date was yesterday at 2:14 a.m. So he built this while our kids slept. I snapped photos of the wrist marks again for a timeline. Eli tried to hide them, then stopped and let me. That choice broke my heart in a new way. He was learning when evidence mattered. My ex texted while I was still staring at the metadata. "Pick up in 30 minutes, be ready." I did not answer, and that was my answer. Then the doorbell rang, one long press that would not quit. The doorbell kept screaming and my hands went slick. I pulled Eli behind me and held a finger to my lips. He nodded hard like he already knew the drill. Then the handle twitched once, slow and deliberate like a test. "Open up," his voice pushed through the wood. I stayed silent and pressed my phone to my ear. Eli's nails dug into my sleeve and he would not blink. Another twist came, louder this time, closer to anger. I crept to the side window and peeked through a crack. He stood there with his phone raised, filming the door. He mouthed something like he was narrating for an audience. Then he looked straight at the glass like he knew I watched. I slid the chain bolt into place with a click. The sound felt stupidly loud in my own house. He smiled at the noise like it proved his point. My stomach flipped at that little grin. Court order, his voice turned sing-song sweet. He shoved a sheet up to the peephole. I saw bold letters and a stamp shape again. He was trying to make my fear obey a font. Eli whispered, "Am I allowed to talk right now?" That question cracked something open in me. I shook my head and guided him down the hall. He moved like a kid carrying glass inside his ribs. I put him in the bathroom and shut the door gently. "Lock it, sit on the floor, stay quiet." His eyes went wide, then he nodded like a soldier. I hated myself for asking that of him even once. I went back and turned on my phone camera. I did not aim it at myself, I aimed it at the door. "State your name," my voice sounded too steady. His laugh came fast, like he liked the game. "You don't need my name," a pause, then a sniff. "I have lawful access to my child." His knuckles hit the door twice, hard and flat. The chain rattled, and Eli made a sound behind the wall. I called the non-emergency line and kept my voice low. I gave my address and said a custody dispute was escalating. My ex heard me and started talking louder on purpose. "Tell them I'm being denied my rights," he shouted for the recording. The dispatcher asked if he had forced entry. I said not yet and stared at the chain anyway. My ex started reading from his document like a script. "Parental inspection is permitted," he announced like an actor on stage. I told the dispatcher I did not consent to entry. My ex snapped, "Consent is not required." He said it with such confidence it almost worked on me. Almost until he added, "The PDF covers it." I kept filming while my mind raced in circles. He was building a story, not asking for his kid. I realized he wanted me to open so he could document it. That thought landed heavy, and I did not move. 2 patrol cars rolled up and my ex shifted fast. He lowered his voice and straightened his shoulders. He walked right to them, phone still held high. I watched through the crack, feeling hunted in my own home. He flashed his pages like they were credentials. One officer glanced at the sheet and then at the door. The other one asked him for an actual case number. My ex's jaw tightened just for a second. He tried to talk over them with legal-sounding phrases. The officer cut him off and held up a hand. I could not hear every word, but I saw the power flip. My ex stepped back, then smiled again. The officer knocked and I opened the door a few inches. Chain still on, my body refused to do more. "Is the child okay in there?" the officer asked. I nodded, then my voice cracked right on the word okay. My ex leaned around, trying to see past me. "Tell him to come out," his tone went sharp. The officer blocked him with a small step. That tiny move felt like oxygen, and it still was not enough. I told the officer about the wrist marks in the rights file. I kept it short because my mouth felt useless. My ex jumped in with, "Discipline is permitted." The officer looked at him like he was speaking a different language. "Ma'am, keep the door locked," the officer told me quietly. Then he turned and asked my ex to leave the property. My ex scoffed and lifted his paper again, shaking it once. "Refusal will be documented," he warned like a threat wrapped in ink. He backed down the steps slow, never turning his phone off. He angled it toward my door like it was a courtroom camera. Before he reached his car, he called out one last line. "Your interference will cost you," he yelled, then drove away. I shut the door and leaned into it until my knees shook. Eli opened the bathroom door crack and stared at me. His face asked questions he did not say out loud. I motioned him out, and he walked like he expected punishment. He went straight to the kitchen table and sat stiff. He did not touch anything, not even his own hands. "Did I follow the rules?" he asked, eyes fixed ahead. That sentence made my throat close because whose rules were those? I crouched in front of him and kept my voice soft. "No more rules from him tonight." Eli swallowed and nodded, then whispered, "He makes me practice." "Practice what, like homework for fear?" He rubbed his wrists again and stared at the floor. "Say yes, say it clearly, look at the phone." He mimed holding a camera in front of his face. Then he flinched at his own gesture like he heard a countdown. "Show me," I asked, then hated asking it. Eli hesitated, then put his hands on the table. "Yes, I agree," he recited flat and careful. My stomach turned because it sounded rehearsed for evidence. I grabbed my phone and set it down face up. "I'm recording for you, not against you." Eli stared at the lens like it could bite. Then he whispered, "He says recordings make it true." The next morning, I walked him into the school office early. Eli clung to my sleeve and scanned the hallway corners. The counselor came out and Eli froze mid-step. "Are you here to talk about safety?" she asked, too calm. Eli nodded once, then shook his head like it was dangerous. He pulled the folded paper from his pocket without looking at me. The counselor took it and her eyebrows lifted fast. She kept her face neutral, which made my pulse spike. She asked Eli simple questions with long pauses. "Do you ever feel scared at visits?" Eli opened his mouth, then glanced at my phone in my hand. He swallowed the answer like he was trained to do it. The counselor asked, "What happens if you say no?" Eli's shoulders rose and stayed there, lock it up. He whispered, "No is not allowed during checks." Then he added, "Because it's legal," and his eyes watered. The counselor asked if he had a device his dad could access. Eli pulled out his tablet like it was contraband. He tapped 3 times, then stopped and looked at me. "Am I allowed?" he asked, and my heart broke again. "Do it," the counselor urged, gentle but firm. Eli opened a game and swiped behind it. A settings screen flashed, then vanished when he panicked. I saw the flicker, though, like a hidden door. The counselor asked him to try again, slower. Eli's hand shook and he missed the spot twice. Then the screen opened and an app list appeared. One icon had no name, which is never a good sign. The counselor leaned in and pointed at the blank icon. "Tap that." Her voice stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened. Eli tapped and a login page popped up. The username field was already filled with my ex's handle. Eli stared at it like he got caught stealing. "That's not mine," he blurted, then covered his mouth. The counselor took a photo of the screen with her phone. Then she looked at me and spoke one sentence that changed everything. "We have to report this today," she said, and Eli went pale. I signed the school report form with a shaking hand. My pen slipped on the last letter, and I hated that detail. Eli watched the line like it could bite him back. The counselor slid her phone aside and whispered, "This starts a process." A uniformed officer showed up before dismissal even ended. He kept his voice soft and his posture neutral. Eli tucked his wrists under his thighs without thinking. The officer noticed, and his eyes narrowed for half a second. "Can you tell me what happened at the last visit?" Eli stared at the carpet like it held the right answer. I wanted to jump in and speak for him. Then I stopped myself because my panic was not the point. Eli finally spoke, barely moving his lips. "He does checks," that was all he offered. The officer asked what a check meant in his house. Eli flinched before he even answered, which kind of answered it. A social worker arrived and asked for a private room. Eli grabbed my sleeve and held on too tight. I told him I would stay nearby, then felt like a liar. He walked in anyway like he was walking into a test. I sat outside the door and stared at my phone screen. My ex's name popped up, then vanished, then returned. He was calling like nothing happened, like this was a schedule issue. I let it ring while my chest pounded like a warning drum. A text followed, sharp and neat. "Your report is defamatory, retract it today." Then another message came with a screenshot of a legal paragraph. He was already building a counterattack before anyone spoke to him. The social worker came out with a tight face. She did not give me comfort, she gave me instructions. "Do not allow contact until we advise you." I nodded fast, then felt stupidly relieved, until my phone buzzed again. My ex sent a new document titled Notice of Noncompliance. He attached 3 pages and numbered them like evidence. He had added a witness line at the bottom. My hands went cold because he was inviting someone into this. I drove straight to a family law office and did not breathe right. The receptionist took one look at the papers and stopped smiling. She asked if I could wait, then disappeared behind a door. I sat down hard because my legs finally admitted they were weak. A lawyer came out with a legal pad and tired eyes. She skimmed the file and kept tapping one corner. "This is not a court order," she said, flat and certain. Then she asked, "Do you have any real orders on record?" I pulled up the old custody paperwork on my phone. She compared it to his document and made a small sound. Not a gasp, not a curse, just a sound like disgust. "Parts of this are copied," she muttered, "and the rest is invented." She told me to file an emergency motion and move fast. I nodded like I understood, even though my head spun. She asked if I had screenshots, dates, and names. I had all of that and still felt like I had nothing. I sent her the email attachment and the document properties. She stared at the author field, then looked at me. "That's bold," she said, and her mouth turned grim. Bold was a nice word for it, too nice. My phone rang again and I answered without thinking. My ex did not start with hello. "You are escalating this beyond your authority." He talked like a manager disciplining an employee, which made me see him clearer. I told him the school reported and the state was involved. Silence hit so hard I thought the call dropped. Then he laughed once, low and irritated. "State involvement does not void my rights," he snapped like he rehearsed it. He demanded a makeup visit and listed times like an appointment grid. He also said he would serve me at work if I refused. I told him not to come near me or the school. He replied, "Avoidance will be documented," and ended the call. That night I moved Eli's tablet to airplane mode and watched him panic. He kept tapping the screen like he could feel someone watching. "Will he know?" he asked, voice tight and small. I almost lied to calm him, then chose truth and hated it. "I don't know what he can see," I admitted. Eli nodded like he expected that answer anyway. He asked if he had to do the consent lines again. I told him no, and he stared at me like no was illegal. The next morning my ex showed up at the front desk of the school. The secretary called me and her voice shook. "He's here with papers," she whispered, "and he's recording." My stomach dropped because he was forcing the building to play his game. I arrived to find him smiling beside the office window. He held a thick folder like it was a badge. "Good timing," he said, eyes bright with purpose. Then he lifted the folder toward Eli like it was for him. Eli shrank behind my hip and covered his ears. My ex pointed at the top page and spoke loud. "Tell your mother the truth, the document controls the home." He said controls like it was normal, like it was kind. A school resource officer stepped between us and raised a hand. My ex pivoted fast, changing tone to polite outrage. "I am presenting lawful documentation," he insisted, still filming. The officer asked one question that cracked his rhythm: "What is the case number?" My ex's smile twitched and held. He tried to answer with a statute quote and a fake docket line. The officer did not react, he just asked again. That calm repetition hit my ex like a slap because it demanded reality. The officer escorted him out and told him to leave the campus. My ex walked backward the whole way, camera still up. He kept talking to his phone like it was a jury. As he reached the sidewalk he called out, "You are denying due process," and grinned. The emergency hearing landed on a date I did not feel ready for. I sat with my lawyer and watched my ex roll in alone. He carried a binder thick enough to look serious. He placed it on the table like he was dropping a weapon. He started speaking before the judge finished the first sentence. My lawyer raised a hand and the judge shut him down. "Answer questions only," the judge warned, voice flat. My ex nodded like he agreed, then kept trying anyway. He offered his pages as proof that his methods were allowed. The judge flipped through and paused at the header. He asked for the original filing record from the court clerk. My ex's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "I don't have to provide that," my ex tried too fast. The judge looked over his glasses and waited. No anger, no lecture, just silence that demanded an answer. That silence was the first thing that truly scared my ex. The clerk returned with a printout of the actual case docket. It did not match my ex's order at all. The judge tapped the clerk page, then tapped my ex's page. "You altered court formatting," the judge said, and the room went still. My ex tried to pivot into a speech about parental authority. The judge cut him off with one short sentence. "This is not a legal instrument." My ex's face tightened, and I realized he had expected applause. The judge ordered temporary supervised contact only. My ex snapped his binder shut like he could end the hearing himself. He stared right at Eli and forced a smile. "Remember the rules," he mouthed even as the bailiff watched. Eli squeezed my fingers so hard it hurt. I did not pull away, even though my hand went numb. My lawyer leaned close and whispered, "We forward this to investigators." Then my phone buzzed in my pocket with a new message from him. My phone lit up in my palm as we left the courthouse. One new text sat there like a dare. Supervision is temporary, your interference is permanent. My lawyer glanced once, then quietly took a screenshot. Eli tugged my sleeve and kept his eyes on the parking lot. He watched every passing car like it could stop for him. I wanted to tell him it was over now. I could not say it without feeling like a liar. We got home and I turned off every device I could find. Wi-Fi went down, Bluetooth went off, location got disabled. Eli flinched at the silence, then looked relieved. Will he still hear us? He whispered like walls had ears. I opened the tablet settings again and dug deeper. The hidden app was not just tracking, it had remote access. It showed device pings and a log of screenshots. My hands shook when I saw timestamps matching our nights. I sent the screenshots to my lawyer and the social worker. Then I sent them to the detective contact the lawyer mentioned. I expected an auto reply, some empty. We received it. Instead, my phone rang within 5 minutes from a blocked line. This is Detective Harris. His voice stayed calm and tight. He asked if my child was safe right now. I said yes, then realized I was guessing. He told me to keep everything powered off and not wipe anything. He gave me a case number and asked me to write it down. I wrote it on my wrist with a pen like I might forget my own name. Eli watched and swallowed hard. What does a case number mean? He asked, like it was another rule. It means grown-ups have to look at facts, I told him. That sounded brave, and I did not feel brave. Eli nodded anyway, like he wanted to believe it. Then he asked, will Dad get in trouble for the file? The next day, we went to the supervised visit center. I hated that sentence, but it was better than the alternative. My ex arrived with a smile that looked practiced. He waved at Eli like nothing happened, like I was the problem. A staff member stepped between them and checked identification. My ex held out a stack of papers, ready for his speech. The staff member did not take them. Those aren't required here, she said, and my ex blinked. Eli sat beside me and kept both hands visible. He looked like he was trying to be good in advance. My ex leaned forward and lowered his voice. Tell them you consent, he murmured like a code phrase. Eli stared at the floor and went quiet. I watched my ex's jaw tense, then smooth out again. He forced a softer tone and smiled wider. You can talk to me, he coaxed while his foot tapped. The staff member leaned in and set a timer on the table. Rules are simple, she said, steady and clear. No coaching, no filming, no documents. My ex's eyes flicked to the ceiling like he missed his camera. He tried a new angle and turned toward me. This is parental alienation, he snapped loud enough for staff. I did not respond because my mouth felt too dangerous. I just looked at the staff member and she wrote something down. Eli finally spoke, voice small and firm. I don't want the checks anymore. My ex's smile cracked for a second, then hardened. What checks? He pushed it too quick to be casual. Eli's fingers clenched on his own knees. The ones where I have to say yes, he answered. My ex leaned forward like he could pull the words back. Don't say that, he hissed, then caught himself. The staff member stood up immediately. Visit is over, she said, no debate. My ex shot up too fast, chair legs scraping. He looked ready to argue until he saw security watching. He turned to Eli and tried one last soft voice. Remember what the document says, he whispered. Eli looked up at him for the first time. That document isn't real, he said, and my ex went still. Outside, my ex followed me to the sidewalk line. He stayed just far enough to pretend he was respectful. You think you won, he muttered through a smile. Courts love paperwork, he added like he could summon reality. I did something I am not proud of. I laughed in his face, short and raw. It was not strength, it was exhaustion. His smile dropped and his eyes turned mean. That night my front camera clicked on by itself. A tiny green dot appeared, then vanished. I felt my stomach flip because I recognized the pattern. Someone was still trying to watch even after the shutdown. I called Detective Harris again and left a clipped voicemail. I listed the device behavior and the time it happened. I wanted to sound rational, not hysterical. My voice still shook because I was furious. The detective called back and told me to bring the devices in. He said a tech unit would pull logs and image the storage. Eli overheard and went pale. Are they taking my tablet forever? He asked like it was punishment. No, I told him, then corrected myself. I don't know, but you're not in trouble. He nodded, then frowned like he did not trust comfort. Dad says adults always pick sides, he said quietly. At the station, an officer handed Eli a small stress ball. Eli stared at it like it was a trick. I wanted to cry at that simple kindness. Then my ex's name popped up on my phone again, new number. The text was a single line. Do not speak to police without my consent. I read it twice and felt my face go numb. He was still trying to control the room from outside it. I showed the text to the detective at the desk. He did not look surprised, which scared me. He asked if my ex had ever threatened reporting me. I nodded and the detective's expression tightened. A week later, my lawyer called with a voice I did not recognize. Not scared, not cautious, focused. They found tampering patterns, she said. Then she paused and added, and your ex made it worse. Apparently he emailed the court clerk directly. He attached his fake order and demanded enforcement. The clerk forwarded it to court security instead. My ex basically walked into a spotlight by choice. The detective visited the supervised center during my next drop-off. He watched from the lobby and took notes like it was routine. My ex arrived and started his charm again. Then he saw the detective and his smile froze. The detective stepped forward and asked to speak out. Sid. My ex tried to keep talking, like noise could stop time. The detective held up a hand and waited. My ex followed him anyway, stiff and quiet. Eli watched through the window and held my hand. He did not ask what was happening this time. He just squeezed, then let go, then squeezed again. His eyes stayed locked on his dad like he was waiting for the next rule. My ex came back inside with a new face. Not angry, not smug, blank. He walked past Eli without a word. The staff member announced the visit was canceled, and my ex did not argue. On the drive home, Eli stared out the window for a long time. Then he spoke like he had been saving it. Am I allowed to be mad at him? That question hit me harder than anything he had shown me. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel, I told him. I meant it even if my voice broke. Eli nodded and wiped his face with his sleeve. Then he said, I want my room back, not the rules. That night we tore up the printed pages together. Not for court, not for revenge, just for him. He ripped slowly at first, then faster, then furious. He dropped the scraps in the trash and stared at them like they might crawl out. Before bed, he looked at me and asked one last thing. If a parent prints words, does it make them true? I took a breath and forced myself to answer clean. No, I said, and anyone telling you that is lying.